How do you see the growth over the last few years, and how do you see it moving in the next couple of years? There are lots of questions embedded in this, but you can pick
Yes.
up one slice at a time and probably answer it.
So one of the things I learned, Swami, is your answer depends on the target audience. So let me say I have three different people that I speak to, and I can try and build a story around that. So if I'm talking to an investor, yes, what you said, 40 billion is what clients spend go globally on out of home, of which I would say maybe globally about 20, 25, or maybe even 30% has gone digital. Now, there are some nuances. In some market, it's 50-50, in some markets, it's 70-30, in some markets, it's 20-80. But I think overall, you have reached a stage where 30 to 35% of that money is going to digital out of home. Then you ask yourself the question, how much of that is automated? How much of that is data led? And how much of that is kind of truly addressable in a programmatic way? And then you find it drops dramatically, much lower, right? So now that's the reality. So when I talk to an investor, I turn around and say, it's not even the 40 billion. There is 400 billion that's being spent on digital platforms, digital internet platforms. Now, as a marketeer, at a point where automation and measurement exist equally in the outernet and in the internet, I would then say, I will put my money where I get my return. I don't really care for internet or outernet. Now, when that day happens, suddenly from playing in a 30% of 50 billion, which is 15 billion or 20 billion, suddenly you would be playing in a 500 billion or a 600 billion marketplace. So that's the investor view of what the potential is there if we manage to crack this problem. Right? But when you talk to an advertiser, I have a slightly different way. When I talk to a marketer, I have a slightly different way. And it all comes back to our personal experiences. I would love to ask you, what's that last ad that you saw on YouTube without skipping? Or, what is that last ad on Meta that you noticed and you wanted to click through? And the answer is, um, I think when cases of effectiveness was being built in the early days, let's say they had 100 advertisers in advertising, or 10 advertisers advertising. The minute it becomes a billion advertisers trying to push content through, irrespective of what you say, that it's highly targeted, it's all of that, I still get, I don't want to name the platforms, I get ads which are purely Chinese in language without subtitles hitting me. And I keep wondering, how can this happen with all the data and addressability that's in place? So the reality is, anything that is saturated, and if 70% of global budgets are going there with a billion advertisers, I think consumers have stopped watching it. It's just become, interestingly, I used to say when I was in IBM that you can't get fired for choosing IBM, right? So you make safe choices so that you could go back to the boss and say, I picked the best IT company, but if the project failed, it's not my problem. So I think there is a certain element of that in the marketeer's mind and in the agency planner's mind. Let us just take some safe choices. But then there is a group of probably 5-10% of marketeers, the names that you mentioned, like Foodpanda or Sony Pictures or AirAsia that we work with, etc. They come in and say, that's an opportunity for us. If people are not exploiting that well, then I should be looking at exploiting that well. So it's always in that maturity curve. I think it's gone beyond the innovators, in my view. 3-5 years ago, we were in innovators. I think it is moving into a mass adoption stage right now. And at some point, again, this will also saturate. And I think then we need to really come up with data science and, for a lack of, to be in the right forums, the right AI, ML techniques, where you can now start talking about sequencing. So you're not only talking about which media you allocate money to, but you start thinking at sequencing models, etc. But I think that's how the industry will progress, in my view, Swami.